I want to give you some video directions on how to do our first lab. We try to do this for every lab. This first one is a dry lab, so you don't need your lab kit for it. But since it's the first one, I want to make sure you know where to find all the information, where to find everything. So if you go to our modules and you go to week 2, you'll see that there's our lab folder. You can also find this folder under the lab tab over here. So if you're like specifically looking for lab, you don't remember what week we're in, you'll be able to find it here too. So if you go to this, you'll see that there's 3 things. There's always going to be 3. You'll have a pre-lab, you'll have the procedure, and then you'll have the assignment. So I would first kind of go to the procedure and read through the lab before I even do the pre-lab. So when you pull this up, you can see this is about naming. This is naming compounds. How do we name compounds? This is stuff we've already talked about in class, but all the rules for naming are broken down in this lab again. So you'll have to name some elements, some molecular binary compounds. What else do we have there? What's the difference between monatomic and polyatomic ions? What are some ions we need to memorize, and then how do we use those when we're naming ionic compounds? So and then finally acids. In this particular lab, we also put the data sheet here. So if you want to start working on the data sheet that way, that's fine. You'll also find the data sheet in the assignment. So if you go down here to the assignments, if you click on this piece here, that will bring up the data sheet. And this is what you're actually going to submit. For this one, you don't even have to print it out. If you want to type it up, that's perfectly fine. You can type right in here, save it to your computer, and then upload. Sorry, and then upload it here. You'll just browse local files, and then wherever you saved it, it will show up. Attach that file, and then click submit, and then you're good to go. So if you're gonna, oops, I don't need to open this 10,000 times. So if you open up your data sheet here, my goodness, too many files. Naming. This is our data sheet. And if you want to type it right in here, it would be really helpful for me. I'm going to give you some tips on what makes grading easy for me. The easier it is for me to grade, the quicker I can grade it, and then the quicker I can get it back to you, and the quicker you can see any mistakes, or you can celebrate how well you did on it. So it's really easy for me if you just click in here and then you type like iron. Iron is what? Iron is Fe. If you highlight that and make it red or something, if you make all your answers in red or distinguish them some way from what's given to you, then I can really quickly go down and read it. Careful with some of these, like nitrogen. Nitrogen is diatomic in this case. It's an element, but it's one of the diatomic ones. So if you're like, well, how do I make that a subscript? If you highlight that, and so I have a shortcut button there. If you don't have that, if you highlight it and then you right click and you go to font and then subscript, that'll make it go lower. Yeah, so you'll play around with that and then highlight it. Great. Trying to think if there's anything else in here. So what are the pieces here? You'll have elements, then you have molecular, binary molecular compounds, and then just straight up polyatomic ions, and then ionic compounds. We will go over this in class in our Zoom session. I have no problem. If you have questions, you're working on this, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do this. Watch the video again, the lecture video, and then also ask questions. Email me a question on whatever one you're working on. We can work through these during our live online session. So to find that live online meeting, if you go over to our Zoom meeting link, upcoming meetings. So you can just join whatever upcoming meeting we have there. And then if you can't make it to that meeting, but you want to see what we covered, afterwards, these will automatically post. I just have to click on change the topic. You'll be able to find the cloud recording. So always check those, because you never know what what questions we'll be answering during our lab. So email me if you have any questions, and